Welcome to Daily Dose of Septuagint, and having spent some time in Psalm 22, we're now going to circle back to the flood narrative. We've been going through that for quite some time. We hadn't quite finished Genesis 8, so over the next few videos we'll do that, and then we'll move on to Genesis 9. So we're picking up in verses 15 and 16. If you recall, the land has dried out, and now we're going to see what happens next. Kai epen kyrios hotheos to noe legon, exelthe ektes kibotu, su, kai hegune su, kai huioi su, kai hagunaikas, ton huion su meta su. This kai, of course, is just linking back to the prior verses. We covered those a while back. First verb here is, of course, apen from Lego. First installment is third singular aorist, of course. A little stem change there. The subject here is the Lord God. So, and the Lord God spoke. Now, if you look this up in an English Bible drawing on the Masoretic text, it'll just say God spoke. And we've seen that a lot in Genesis for whatever reason, and there's probably a lot of different possibilities in terms of maybe slightly different Hebrew source text or what have you. The Old Greek has Lord God as opposed to simply Elohim or God. And again, this is pretty common so far throughout Genesis. So the Lord God spoke to Noah, and then we have a participial form of Lego here. This is just your nominative singular masculine present active participle. Notice you got the leg here versus the ape there. Saying, and that matches nicely with l'amour in Hebrew. And here's what God says to Noah. Exelthe, that's from ex erchomai. And so even though you do have the spelling change from erchomai to elth, we're poaching the second singular ending from the present imperative. So that makes this a second singular aorist active imperative here. So depart, and then from tes kibotu, from the ark. So leave the ark, depart from the ark. Now he's addressing Noah chiefly, but now he's going to add the family. So he has you, that is Noah, and your wife here, and your sons, and we found out previously in Genesis that Shem, Ham, and Japheth, and the wives of your sons. And notice he finishes here, or the verse finishes with you. So it's you plus everybody else with you. And so putting it all together, depart from the ark, you and your wife and your sons, and the wives of your sons with you. Meta there plus the genitive. Now, this may remind you of some prior stages in Genesis, specifically Genesis 6:18, where, in effect, the reverse was true. It was enter the ark, which actually was eis erchomai, you and your sons and your wife and the wives of your sons with you. So exact same phrase, and we covered that a long time ago, only now entering is becoming exiting. So there's a nice really book ending there with that whole flood narrative in between. And if you remember back then, we looked at 1 Peter 3:20. So this has been a long time. Good to remind ourselves where Peter says, while the ark, so that's your kibotu there, see that connection, was being prepared, in which a few, that is 8. So Peter here does the math, the octo suchai. So that's Noah, his wife, the 3 sons, and their 3 wives. You put that together, you have 8, were brought safely through water. So now, we sort of talked about that earlier when they go into the ark. Now we actually see them set foot on dry land. They're coming out of the ark, and indeed they were brought safely through the massive water. So nice, again, little way to circle back and close the loop. So that's Genesis 8:15 through 16. We'll see what happens next in the subsequent videos. Thanks for watching.